Give strength to all the friends in the world. CLE hold on to love and fear before you in order to give you contentment. We ask you to increase in us the responsibility drawing your light to the world. Shom hello, we are reading Rabbash article. The main difference between a beastly soul and a godly soul. The article can be found on Kabbalah Media Info. The main difference between a beastly soul and a godly soul. It is written in the said Rabbi Elazar started on my bed night. After night I sought him whom my soul loves, he says. Sorry, he asks, he says, on my bed it should have said in my bed. However, the assembly of Israel spoke before the Creator and asked him about the exile, since she is seated among the rest of the nations with her children and lies in the dust, and because she is lying in another land and pure one, she said, on my bed I ask, for I am lying in exile, and exile is called nights. Hence I sought him whom my soul loves to deliver me from it. We should understand why he says that on my bed at night refers to the exile. Exile can be understood in three ways. One, she is seated among the rest of the nations with her children. This is plural form, among the nations. Two, she lies in the dust. Three, because she is lying in another land and impure one, which is singular form. Also, we should understand what is the assembly of Israel with her children in the work, and that they lie in exile, and she is lying in the dust in their work. It is known that the assembly of Israel is called who is the root of all souls, for contains within her all the souls. Generally, we learn that all the corrections in the world are named after Mal, because Mal is the general CLI, the vessel that receives all the lights imparted upon all the worlds. Bam said a rule that we must know. One, in general, all the lights that exist in the world are regarded as the light of into the general receiver that we discern in the worlds, and in where is three, all the multiplicities are only from the perspective of their receivers. For each and every discernment we make is to the extent that Mal is impressed by the light she receives, that is according to the power of that raises or reflected light. She feels the light bestowed upon her. Since there are many discernments in the MIM, as we learned, there are also many discernments in the light. To understand the need for for screen and reflected light, which causes many discernments, we must remember what he said in the study of the 10 in part 1, where he says that we begin to speak of the connection between the Creator and the creatures, and that connection is called his desire to do good to his creations. For this reason he created existence from absence, and this existence is called will to receive for oneself. This is something new which did not exist before that desire was created. Hence this desire called Mal received that light as one discernment without distinguishing degrees. Since the Creator who created the will to receive delight and pleasure was precisely a desire to receive to the extent that the Creator wants to give. For this reason it is written in the beginning of the book Tree of Life that prior to the time the restriction the upper light had filled the whole of reality, and there was no beginning or end until after of N received the light. And since the power of the upper one, which is the desire to bestow, is included in the light, once received the light she wanted equivalence of form like the light she had received. For this reason she restricted herself from receiving in order to receive, and will not receive any more abundance than the extent to which she can aim to bestow, since we attribute this clear to the receiver, and it is against the nature of Mal, who was created with a will to receive, and now she needs to do something against her nature, making such a clue does not happen at once. That is, Mal cannot receive all the light she had prior to the and take it in order to bestow. This is why we discern many discernments in Mal, which is the general vessel of reception, to the extent of the ability of the MIM that she's able to do. That is from the perspective of the Creator. His intention was to bestow endlessly, meaning according to the measures of the will to receive, but from the perspective of their lower one, which want to receive only in order to bestow. We get all the multiplicities called corrections of mal. Generally, we speak of who is the only one to beget the souls. Through the cascading of their worlds emerged, and the soul she begot corrected her. That is, the souls that come from her. Each one corrects at the root of his soul in mal, to be a corrected part in the will, to receive in her in order to bestow, and to that extent bestows upon the lower ones. That is to the extent of equivalence of form that the lower one causes above, and to that extent it is bestowed upon the lower one who caused the correction in her, so she can receive from her upper one, because there is already equivalence of form between the receiver and the giver. This is called the unification of the creator and his. That is, unification is called equivalence of form when the receiver is corrected with the aim to bestow. This aim makes the receiver be regarded as giver, because everything follows the intention. As said above, the purpose of creation is to do good to his creations, meaning for the souls to receive delight and pleasure. For this reason, since equivalence of form mandates that there will be work in the lower ones to obtain that intention to bestow, and since the creatures were created with the nature to work in order to receive, which is against the Huser holiness, because all the light of pleasure that comes from the Creator is because he desires to bestow, and the lower one who receives it is the opposite of this. Hence the question is, from where will the creatures take life so they can exist before the creatures obtain the vessels of bestow, so they will have equivalent of form, since any life and pleasure come from their Creator, and disparity of form separates them from the Creator. Thus who would give them vitality and pleasure, since without it, it is impossible to exist, because of the law of purpose, which is to do good, and if the creatures have no delight and pleasure, they cannot exist in the world. Rather sustains the shells, so they will not be cancelled. For this reason, even before a person is rewarded with vessels of bestowal in order to be able to receive the L of, he is nourished by the ought from what the sustains seapot with, so they will not be cancelled. This is as it is written in the introduction to the Book of Zohar, in order to mend that separation which lies on the CLE of their souls. He created all the worlds and separated them into two systems, as in the verse, God has made them one opposite their other. These are the four worlds of, and opposite them the four worlds AB of T. Impurity he imprinted the desire to bestow in the system of above, removed the will to receive for themselves from them, and placed it in the system of the world of T. Because of this they have become separated from the Creator, and from all the worlds of the worlds cascaded into one, into the reality of this corporeal world, where there is a body and a soul, and a time of corruption and a time of correction. For the body, which is the will to receive for oneself, extends from its root in the thought of creation through the system of the worlds of T. Accordingly, we see that the sepot are necessary to us, since the goof, the body, extends from them and receives vitality from them only afterward by the power of Torah and MIT, when he engages in order to bestow contentment upon his Maker. He, the body, begins to purify the will to receive for himself, imprinted in it and gradually inverted into working in order to bestow. By this it extends as a soul of Huser of holiness from its root in the thought of creation, and it passes through the system of the world of holiness and dresses in the body, as it is written. For this reason the holiness must give vitality to the clipper, to the shell, so they can exist. It is as it is written in the book, Tree of Life, it is necessary to have some tiny sparks OFA, which are the 11 marks of the incense within the seapot within those shells. This is the meaning of what is written, that nothing can exist without sparks of. For this reason we discern two souls in man, one a beastly soul, two the soul of holiness. The beastly soul is that which sustains the body and maintains its existence, since it is impossible to live without pleasure. Pleasure is light that comes from above, and there is no light without a clear vessel. For this reason the pleasure must dress within some CLE, and it cannot be said that a person wants pleasure without any clothing, but only the pleasure. Rather, there must be pleasure clothed in some CLI. Generally, the dresses where the light of pleasure is clothed ailed envy, lust and honour. By and large there are 3 dressings, but in each clothing there are many discernments. For example, in lust we should discern eating, drinking, and so forth. Likewise, there are many discernments in eating as well as in drinking. In other words, each clothing we feel a different pleasure, which is different in taste. Thus the taste of eating bread is unlike the taste of eating cake, although the light of pleasure is one. The dresses in which the light of pleasure clothes make the difference. All of this is called the beastly soul. This means that there is beast and there is man. As our sages said, you are called man, and the nations of the world are not called man. We should understand that beast means that one has no relation to the work of the Creator. For this reason the beastly soul which sustains the body has no need for faith in the Creator. Even those who have no faith can receive the light of pleasure that sustains the body, which is called a beast, although we should believe that there is nothing that does not extend from the Creator, meaning that this sustains the support. Yet the body being called a beast means that it does not feel that the light of pleasure comes from the Creator. We must believe that the Creator did this on purpose, that they would not know that He has given them life, because it is for man's correction. Otherwise man would have been regarded as knowing his master and aiming to rebel against him. Conversely, the godly soul is that to the extent of the faith he, as the godly soul spreads within him, meaning the feeling that he has a godly soul that sustains him spreads within him to the extent of the faith that he has. The extent of the faith can be in a person according to the measure of his work, in order to bestow, as explained in the where he says that a person cannot obtain faith before he has vessels of bestow. We should believe, as we see, that the beastly soul that sustains the body according to the measure of clothing in the dresses, so we feel the flavour where the beastly soul is clothed in the dresses. Although the beastly soul is one through the dresses it wears, we see that each clothing yields a different taste. Certainly, we say that one who wears, who is clothed in the dresses, changes according to his dresses. Likewise, we should believe that a godly soul also clothes in the dresses called tea. And although we say that there are no changes in the light, the dresses engender different flavours, so we cannot feel the taste of light that is dressed in tar and as similar to one another, since a different light is dressed in each mitzvah, which is the meaning of the 613 MIT that the Zohar calls 613 deposits, meaning that in each mitzvah a different light is deposited, meaning a different flavour, since the changes come due to the dresses. This is similar to what is written in the Sulam, that when we are rewarded with hearing the voice of His words, where 613 become from the word peace, since there are 613 mitv, and in each mitva the light of a unique degree is deposited corresponding to a specific organ in the 613 organs and tendons of the soul and the body. It follows that by making the mitzvah he extends to its corresponding organ in his soul and body the degree of light that pertains to that organ and tendon. This is regarded as the face of the, although the light is one, since there are no changes in the light, but there is no light without a CLE, meaning without dresses. It follows that the dresses change the flavours in the light. Many discernments extend from this, both in corporeal pleasures and in spiritual pleasures. However, we must know that the primary discernments we make in spirituality are the to the extent that we can aim to bestow, which in spirituality is judged by the reflected light that he has, so he dresses the upper abundance in the order of our work. It is called to the extent that a person can aim to bestow, so that extent the light appears to him. Now we will return to explaining what we asked about the assembly of Israel lying in the dust. The Zohar calls the exile by the name knights, and by the name seated among the nations, and by the name the other impure land, and by the name dust, according to the above. The issue of the souls having to correct the malud from where they were born is that since by nature the Creator created mal with a desire and yearning to receive light and pleasure, since this was the purpose of creation, but because of the correction of creation, in order not to have shame, should be corrected into working in order to bestow. This correction is for the souls to do that, as we learn that his desire to do good to his creations refers to the soul, that they will receive delight and pleasure, and all that we learn about the upper worlds is only a preparation whereby the restrictions and cleansing and various changes that we learn in the upper worlds are but preparations for the soul to emerge in the way that the Creator wanted them to emerge, ready to receive delight and pleasure. For this reason, when we say that mal engendered the souls, it means that their souls should receive the abundance from her, and the conditions by which the abundance can stay in their possession, meaning that they will receive in order to bestow. This means that it is as though the souls say to mal, give us delight and pleasure into our kim, which we awaken ourselves, so everything we do will be in order to. Now we can understand that the words mal is in exile with her children, because this concerns the desire to bestow, which are time with which we can receive the delight and pleasure, and that it will not depart the abundance. Otherwise, if the will to receive for oneself comes in the middle, the abundance must depart, since the kim of the desire to bestow are called men, as our sages said, you are called men, and the nations of the world are not called men, where man means bestowing and beast means receiving, and man means male and female means receiving. It is known that each person in the world is considered a small world in and of itself, as it is written in the said that is each person consists of 70 nations, which means that God has made them one opposite the other. There are 7 qualities called, and each consists of 10. Hence the 7 qualities of are sometimes called 70 faces. Opposite them are 70 nations of tamaf, impurity, and everything is included within. Manness is the meaning. This means that the man in him, regarded as the point in the heart, is in the dark under the rule of the 70 nations in him, which enslave the Israel in him, so he will not be able to engage in bestow, which is man, but rather the beastly soul governs. It follows that the quality of Israel is in exile among the rest of the nations, meaning that self-reception, called the nations of the world, controls Israel. This is regarded as the se among the rest of the nations with her children, as in when Israel are in exile is with them, it follows that she is in exile with her children. This means that generally is called the and her children are every quality of Israel within each and every one in exile, means those who feel that they cannot emerge from the control of the nations of their world. The measure of suffering in the exile is judged by the measure of wanting to emerge from the exile, meaning from the governance of the rest of the nations. However, sometimes a person comes to a state, as it is written, and they mingle with the nations, and learned from their actions that is they do not feel any difference between them and the nations. There is one does not say that he wants to do otherwise, but rather that the nations are ruling over him, and he himself wants to behave like all the nations. That person is not in exile, that is, he has no vessels for redemption, since one whose vessels are in exile, meaning that he wants to work in order to bestow, but the body resists him. Then it can be said that the 7 nations he has in his body control the quality of Israel Within him at that time he can see that the vessels of pisto are under the control of the body, and when he cries out to the Creator to deliver him from the animal, he knows what he wants with clarity, is as it is written in the said that a person should see while he's praying that he knows how to pray. Clearly, we asked the Creator not know what is inside man's heart. Why does the Tsar say that one must speak to the Creator? Clearly the answer is that it must be clear to men what he is asking of the Creator. The reason is that there is no light without a vessel, and therefore no redemption without exile. By base, we should interpret that exile means that the souls are in exile in order for receive light and pleasure for their souls. They must be in equivalence of form, which is the desire to bestow. This desire is placed under the rule of their shells called the land of the nations, or the impure land. When a person wants to work in order to bestow, he feels a taste of dust in the work of. Only when he engages in order to receive for himself does he feel the taste of food, similar to how we interpreted the words, and you shall eat dust all the days of your life, as our sages said. A serpent, its only food. D, we should interpret that as long as one did not correct the sin of the primordial serpent, anything he eats, meaning all the flavors that a person tastes in, to feel like dust. However, once a person has been rewarded with correcting the sin of self reception called the primordial serpent, he begins to feel the flavor of Tura, and as it is written, nicer than gold and sweeter than honey. This is the meaning of the words lies in there. Thus this means that each and everyone who wants to work in order to bestow, meaning to take upon himself the burden of the kingdom of heaven in order to bestow, tastes, feels the taste of dust due to the sin of the primordial serpent. As Sam said about what our sages said, the serpent came over Eve and cast filth in her. He said that the meaning is that the serpent cast in this what, instead of meaning he blemished the kingdom of heaven. One who wants to take upon himself the kingdom of heaven, the serpent comes and asks this person this, what meaning, what would you get out of wanting to work for the sake of the kingdom of heaven? That serpent is the evil inclination that is, we must believe above reason that through the kingdom of heaven we will receive the delight and pleasure which is the purpose of creation, and the only reason we cannot receive this good is because of that serpent called the will to receive for oneself. This is the meaning of what is written, that we understand the exile in three ways. One, she is seated among the rest of their nations. He means that the pointing the heart of each and everyone is sitting in exile among the 70 nations that exist in each one of them. She lies in a dust, meaning that we feel the taste of dust. 3, general, she is lying in another impure land, which is called the primordial serpent, where she should have been dressed in a place of a desire to bestow the land of yes, that is, instead of all of his actions being yes, so straight to the Creator, she is in another land, an impure land. Naturally, she cannot bestow upon the created beings the delight and pleasure, because of the disparity of form between the created beings and the Creator. This is the meaning of the words on my bed, which the Tsar interprets as referring to the exile. It refers to those who suffer from the exile, meaning that they want to escape from the will to receive for themselves, but then the nations of the world control them, and they cannot emerge from their control. About those she says, I seek that which my soul loves to bring me out of, meaning that the Creator will give the strength to come out of exile, since there is already an awakening from below called a vessel and desire. At that time it is possible for the light to expand with the light of redemption, removes the governance of the nations of the world. Now we can understand the difference between a beastly soul and a godly soul that is in truth both come from the Creator. There is no other life in the world but that which the Creator gives. The difference is that the Creator gives the beastly soul to men, and a person does not need to Know that the sustaining soul comes from where? Creator. Instead, the person thinks that it came through nature's messengers. This is considered that over the nations of the world he has given governance to ministers, that is, they do not need to believe that it comes from the Creator. Conversely, he alone governs the people of Israel, meaning that the quality of Israel in man that the quality of Israel means that the person believe that it comes from the Creator. There is no other force in the world, but rather he alone does and will do all the deeds. Long article something unclear. No, everyone. Me, he scrutinizes the beastly soul, and he says that it is disconnected from the Creator. The pleases we get, we don't know that it comes from the Creator, we simply receive them. Then he continues and says that this is for men's correction, otherwise he would rebel. Why would the beast aim to rebel? Because it's no longer a beast, it has the beginning of man, and that is why she doesn't know in which direction she's going to develop towards, either continuing as a beast or evolving as a speaking a human. But if we leave the pleasures to the beast, let it remain a beast, why would it rebel? No, it wasn't. Its purpose isn't to rebel. The beast isn't destined to rebel. On the contrary, all of the beasts eventually surrender towards a person's dominance. To Adam speaking, so man is going to rebel. Or I don't understand exactly what it says. This is for men's correction. All the pleasures that we receive are for men, as a beast are for men's correction. Otherwise person would be considered, that is, unknowing his master and aiming to rebel against him. So how would men get to know the Creator if he would attain the pleasures without correction? Then eventually he would reach a state that he would stand up against the Creator, because other than the pleasures, he would also want the source of pleasure. What a more who imparts pleasures to whom? Mal, to the souls, or the souls to Mal is the root of the souls, and through her all of the influences of the souls. And what about the souls? They receive from Al and pass the pleasures back to her. Yes, what's the difference between the usage that Mal makes of the light and the usage that the souls make of the light? Souls are part of their Mal, so there's nothing here, there's no difference. Here he describes a certain relationship in this article between the souls, and the relationship is that Mal receives from the upper one and bestows upon on the souls. Another question is Adam man the most internal discernment in the whole of creation? It turns out that it is, and also he describes, I wrote down like a chain of what he wrote, is that there's Mal, there's the soul, then godly soul, bastly soul, and then men, let's say so in order for to pray. Clearly he has to arrange this chain inside of him. He has to arrange this structure well, gradually stabilizes inside him. Yes, what does it mean that sanctity sustains the shells, that for the time being while the kipot still exist, holiness has to care for them, revive them, because otherwise they won't have any source of livelihood to life from, and all of the system of worlds will shatter. We also need to give the cot to live at, actually want to sustain the beast al s we care for it, part of the motivi we sustain the last waters. See another custom, and removing of the and the tithe and donations, all kinds of things that we purposely remove something from holiness towards the CIP, the shell, because through these shells, for the time being, we can advance towards corrections, and then the clipot will disappear. Does it mean I sort those my soul loves? If a person wants a very internal connection with his soul, that will clothe in him in all of his needs, and he hopes that by that he will entirely be able to come closer to the Creator. Ye can. Yov, yes. Yov in general is called the, and her children are called all the discernments of Israel. Inside each and everyone who are in exile, meaning those who feel that they cannot emerge from the control of the nations of the world. What is this control? I mean, we know that Israel is the quality of Beo. The nations of the world has something with which they can control this quality, but it's the opposite Quality, yes, they have the opposite quality, but they have the strength to draw upon them the upper force, the light, and then to continue these lights towards all of the vessels too. Vessels of best, so they'll see how much sanctity there is in the in holiness, and how there is light in keeper as well in the shell, and how human beings are attracted to the cot to the shells, and that's a problem. It causes the destruction of the world. So how do we break free? What is this action where you are unite, and you find in each and every one a small point of contact with the pure upper force, and then through connection we pray and are attracted to him. It sounds as though connection neutralizes, it detaches, it disconnects you from this control of the nations of the world. So when we say that this is the weapon that Israel should have, a spiritual weapon, this is the connection or the disconnection from the influence of the nations of the world. Right, okay. Thanks. He describes very broadly here that the quality of the beast when a person still wants to be a person, but he has in vase and honor, and there are many pleasures. Every pleasure stands by itself, but there are many discernments. There later on, when there is already faith inside of that too, we discover many pleasures in an. But what is in between the two? What kind of pleasure someone has if he doesn't yet have faith, but he wants to have it? Well, what doesn't mean that he wants to have it. He doesn't know what faith is. He doesn't have the strength. He didn't taste it until he don't taste it as something that all of your inclination towards him is external, because you were told maybe years ago, maybe tasted something. It's not serious. There's no force in that. So what brings us out of the ordinary pleasures of envy and honor to the pleasures of our faith with us green and restriction and reflected light? What brings one out of the first into the second? What pleasures are along the way? These aren't pleasures, because if you come out from the sea to pleasures, then you enter even greater pleasures. So that's it's impossible. It can't be. But coming out of pleasures can be only through the environment. That in each one there is a spark of bestow, and when these sparks are connected, there is the ability to bring a person out of the clipper. This isn't pleasure, I mean everything is light and vessel. How can it be something which is not pleasure in working with the environment? Isn't it pleasure? It's pleasure, but it's pleasure related to bestow to some extent, that eventually it's connected to my question. So it's connected to Baal, but it isn't Baal yet, so otherwise he wouldn't connect. But it has to be stronger than the ordinary pleasures. Slowly through the actions that are done one after the other, we bring a person out of this swamp of receiving in order to receive, to the will to receive in order to bestow. So how do we replace these pleasures from envy, and honor to the pleasure in connection, which later on we get the screen, etc., specifically by envy, lust, and honor that we engage with? We're dealing with a person, and we're awakening in him envy, honor, and lust. Envy of our counters and our friends, and he explains there about lust, and honor is honor of the friends of the group of the heavens. Describe this very nice with our a kiglet, that you lead it with honey until it comes to eat what you want. So what is this honey that we have on the path? We need to pull the egoistic desire in such a way that so that it will want to come closer to sanctity, because on the way he has his own pleasure, and this is the connection. That's the solution. Yet look at how all the world uses it in order to attract buyers, in order to attract viewers. That's how they use it. Okay, thank you. In this article he tells us to buy a second nature through clothings, that it's not us, it's the same clothings and the environment. The 10 is the place where we can put our clothings in this time. What clothings are most important for me to wear? Because we can't remain the same clothing, the same thoughts, the same desires. We need to build a second nature. The greatness of the creator, the greatness of the group, the greatness of the society. This is all that I need. I heard you say that coming out of pleasures can be only through the environment, that each one has a spark, and then when you connect them together, there's the ability to come out of the kip by meaning out of the pleasures. It's a desired state does connecting the spheres of all. The friends is that called the force of, where force of the screen means to connect all the forces that you can see through the friends. Okay, and what's the action then to raise the reflected light? Well, this is already the connection together with the friends and with the upper light, with the Creator. This is how we reach the feeling of the complete vessel. So, what's the addition of connecting the sparks, the feelings of the friends to me, to my sensation, to raising the returning light? What's the addition here? Well, these things are far. I mean, when you want to connect your work with the friends, the force that you get from above, from the Creator. And when want to connect with the Creator, then use the force of the friends. I'll think about it. Thanks. Again, he writes the prayer has to be in clear language so he knows what he's asking. And yesterday we learned about the weeping, and it sounds like something not scrutinized like this outburst, this cry. So I wanted to scrutinize these two differences, the in, like the scrutinized prayer, or the cry of. You know, the cry, the prayer of a cry. So he is only through the scrutiny, or also sometimes we do just cry out. Our work is to be in a request to be in prayer. It's written at the end of the article that there is equivalence of form between the mal and the soul's. What kind of equivalence of form is that? The difference between and no. So what is equivalence of form between mal and the souls? We can't learn that. Yet there will be many definitions along the way, and we will lose other content. What are souls? Even that's exactly what I thought want to touch upon. Now unity, free sparks of holiness, is that Israel, under the dominance of the nations of the world, well, sparks of holiness are sparks of holiness, but if they are under the governance of the nations of the world, then yes, the shell controls them. So the sparks of sanctity do that mean doing the work of connection in the 10. What is the key to attaining the godly spirit, and what are the conditions that we don't yet see to attain this godly spirit that he speaks of in the article? Connection between us, when we will build a system where each and everyone wants to help the other, and this is how we build the power to get close to the Creator, which for the time being will be called knees or soul. Okay, what actions will a person do in order to get yearning to the Creator? Get what again? What actions should a person do to attain craving, yearning to the Creator, yearnings for the Creator? Well, this is by being up by envy towards the friends that he discovers that they are in it already. That is the best thing. Look at the friends and start to detect how they are connected with their Creator, and that you too will have yearnings for that. Good morning, Ra. Good morning. Well, Ra, if you don't mind, I'll read and accept. I'll read and accept, and then I'll ask a question. Similarly, we should believe that also the godly soul that's clothed in its clothing's called Torah, and though we say that in the light there is no equivalence, nevertheless through their clothings they beget different flavors, that the flavor of light that's clothed in tea will not be similar to one another. Does the created being feel the flavor in Torah? And I don't know what you feel. This is something that you must discern. We should reach that. Yes, because so that the vessels would be so clear that all the lights that go through them, the dressing them, we will feel them as pleasures. Is that feeling of the CLE is that formed after the building of the M. Again are changes in sensation that the CLE can feel, that it's only thanks to working with that from there you can be, it can be received. Yes, of course. What garment or what pleasure or clothing of the light can you attain without that? You just need to have the will to receive the restriction screen reflected light and then have contact with the upper light. No thank you. May I ask a general question? Always ask what we think about the article. The article is excellent. Our responses, for me, I need to absorb the feelings of the friends to relate to the depth of the article. I don't have the ability to absorb all of this information. Or well, talk about it in the middle of the day if you have the possibility. We don't have more time now for it. That's it. Shalom, I wanted to share in this article, it says twice the meaning of this in comparison to that. The creator has done. Rash took this from Coet. There's an explanation that makes the whole perception of the article. It's very helpful and also something small. I have asked for what my soul will love. That's from Psalms chapter 3. It's also a song, and it's also recommended only together. Then you thank you very much. Yes, I wanted to ask about what Rabash writes, that the main discernment in spirituality are the screens. What does it mean that the screens are the most important thing? Through the screens that each one of them has a different, of course, as a different quality, we feel the Creator's influence in different forms, and then we are able to understand Him, to feel Him, to enter a connection with Him. Isn't the main thing the see in order for there to be light in reality? Doesn't there need to be a CLE? Yes, but after you have some ability to receive the light, you need to feel it. You need to understand it, to connect with it, to be filled. What the difference in the role of the clear as opposed to the role of the screen? What does each one do? According to the light, the screen is actually the vessel. So all of a person's attainment through the screens he attains, well, the screen determines everything. Yes, so what does it mean that we say that we lack their vessels? We lack screens. We lack the first half, rejection, in order to be separated from the influence of the direct light and shift to connection through reflected light. How our screens attained restrictions, screen and reflected light, those are our vessels. Technically understand the action. If I value their source that is giving me more than I value myself in everything, then I can already begin to receive from Him in order to be. So it just turns out that without the M, a person doesn't receive light, of course. But, of course, so how does the first attainment of the M take place? How does a person attain the M for the first time? Restriction. He doesn't want to receive anything for himself. Of how do you reach the TAM? Because I don't want to be there. I don't want to be different from the Creator, and that's considered that you have our M screen, that I want to have a screen that I want. But as soon as there's our M screen, you start receiving. So why is restriction the condition for the screen says I don't want to receive? Well, the restriction is the precondition that I don't want to receive for myself. The screen comes later. This is what I build in my connection with the friends. With the restriction, I seemingly reject everything. I don't want to be the receiver, and the screen means that I would have liked to connect with the source. Same relation as the source relates to me. Last question about this: is it correct to see that all of spirituality is to attain the M that knows better, to receive, to perceive? Well, this is all our work, this is our purpose, and this is all we need. And the clothings, what are they? Actually, the clothings that come and the result of the M. Well, these are the forms of their screens. Thank you. I have a question. The discernment of there's none else besides Him, does that happen before a person does a restriction, or after there's none else besides Him happens before a person makes a restriction? Because he sees that all sides he is surrounded by and directed by the Creator, and he only has contact with Him. It is only with Him that he has to connect and work with. There are no words here really. We have to translate all of it to the language of the feeling. Who wanted to ask where person needs to be both in a beastly soul and also a godly one? Yes, possibly, certainly. And how can he be only in a godly soul? He needs to aim for that. No, he needs the base soul in order to keep himself and what we call his body. We need to take care of that as well. And the most important is the godly soul, which he develops. The beastly soul, he doesn't have to develop it. He needs to feed it, wash it, take care of it, go to the doctor with it if necessary. What is the godly soul? Come to the lesson, come to the friends. That's the taking care of the and when concerned for the when. The beastly soul now is overcoming him. How can you let it develop to such an extent that it takes over him? That's the question. How to hold on to the godly soul above the beastly one. This is all through Scrutiny. Emotional mental by working in the society. Okay, the godly soul, he writes. The godly soul is to the extent of the faith he has, to that extent the godly soul expands in him, meaning the feeling that he has a godly soul that gives him livelihood expands in him according to the faith he has, and the extent of faith is according to the extent he works in order to bestow. Islam says that a person can't attain faith before he has vessels of bestow. Yes, so working in order to bestow, it turns out that it's like a closed circle, that if I don't have vessels of bestow, I can't reach faith. If I don't have faith, I can't reach a godly soul. So if I work in order to be still, where does it start? From the work in order to bestow. The work in order to bestow starts from wanting to be connected with their society and work only for them, and then I can reach an extent of faith. Yes, so that already means I have something of vessels to bestow. Yes, two of you, or one, two, to go up for a few minutes. I have a call to make and I'll be back. So we'll sing a song. Why I sing a song. I ask questions and people ask questions. People can answer. Okay, so we'll ask questions and the friends will give answer to you. Learn to learn without me. So who raised their hand there? So the rule will always stay the same. It says that you have to be precise in your prayer, that a person has to see that while he prays to know what he prays. For when we write a prayer every day, there are things that are. I'll read 2 lines from a prayer in there. Tend to have the divinity dwell between us. Let the friends feel your greatness. So when you look in the W2, receive its way beyond your eyes and direction. It's not really precise. How can you encompass the prayer in any form? Can you be more precise? What do you mean? How to encompass the prayer, contain the prayer. Yeah, it turns out that we read an article that prayer is for ourselves to scrutinize what we want, because we can't ask for greatness of the Creator in our vessels. It has to be outside of our will to receive. Otherwise the concealment will be annulled and the whole place of freedom of choice in the work too. So what we're left with is the plea towards one another to get importance. Also the sensation. What writes here that we have to reach the sensation of the exile, that as much as he suffers a distance from the Creator, that develops a desire and a yearning, but also we learn that we can ask for suffering from the Creator. So that comes back to us, to the sorrow of being distant from the Creator and the greatness of the Creator. The plea is there are plea towards one another. So what is the question? Okay, so let's continue to more questions. Good morning, dear friends. The question is, we read that the light that clothes, and so tell me please, so, and is that also vessel is to run a vessel shortly in the tent. What isn't are they a vessel? Thanks. So the friend asked. Continue to the next question, friends. We will scrutinize what are the main questions, the main points that we heard in the article. One of the main questions that arise from the article. Yeah, any questions? Let's go. N said he had questions from the article. Please. Lot. No questions. Can they ask for greatness of the Creator? Is that a precise request? It's not a precise request, because you're not saying what do you need it for, why, and what do you need it for. You leave it hanging in the air like I want the greatness of the Creator. It could be for good, it could be for bad, from the positive, from the negative. The request has to be complete. If it is complete, so the way you perceive yourself, who am I to ask great like the Creator? You must turn to the Creator. You must ask the Creator first, because He created you and He gave you that desire, that thought. You've come to a state that without His help you can't perform any action, so you must turn to Him. Yeah, and this plea has to be as detailed as possible. Not to say other Creator understands everything. It's enough to be like a crying baby, and the mother knows exactly what he wants there. It's a different kind of relationship, although the Creator understands, and He brought me this deficiency that made me turn to Him. But I must explain it, elaborate on it, pass it through my vessels. Again, we try to scrutinize the prayer. Because he says that we have to ask clearly, and we discover that except for asking for our connection, there's nothing to ask for, not even his greatness, because anything if we get greatness of the Creator and it's not in the connection between us, so it annuls the concealment, it annuls their work. So if we just have importance and it doesn't come from our connection, same thing about asking for sorrow, like right here, that the more we suffer the feeling of the exile, also that we can ask the Creator, just give us sorrow from being distant from you. So the only thing we can ask of him is to strengthen our connection. That's the only plea that can be correct in the state when I don't know how many degrees we have before us until I reach the ability to ask correctly, to turn to him correctly, to do things correctly. But I cry like a small child who wants something you can explain to him 1,000 times. It's not for him, it's dangerous, it's not for his age, but he wants it. So there's also the matter of asking the Creator for things that may not be relevant for us, and we can ask for, we can still nevertheless ask for them. It arranges things for, just like with a baby, you explain to him that he needs to grow up and you need to ask for this and that in order to understand his question, understand the answer from above. We are also the same. Ken Shalom, if the purpose of creation is to do good to his created beings, why shouldn't we ask for that, be able to enjoy the good he gives us in order to give him contentment? Because we learned that that's the final purpose. If we have the opportunity to enjoy in order to give him contentment, ask for it. Thank you. This is clearly correct, but how far are we from it? That might be a problem. In order to ask of him to feel pleasure, to enjoy, you have to forcefully hold yourself from enjoying, to be in restriction, and then try to ask to feel pleasure, so that all this pleasure will be for the sake of the Creator. That means through the restriction, screen reflected light, when you connect to him, not necessarily to feel pleasure, but to get answers. To I'm sorry, to give pleasure to the Creator, to give contentment to him. There's a very complicated action here that flows directly and inversely. We have to go through many degrees, consequently, to acquire the conditions that will be ready in us, know, to be able to perform this action and to receive. In order to bestow, there has to be a force, but bestow a force of restriction. We need to have screen and a reflected light, and then we need to connect to the Creator with the intention to give him pleasure and to do it by receiving from him. There's a very complex action here, but we will come to a task. Ask more specifically in this direction. We wish to develop, not simply go through test, but to have, when we have control over certain forces that are working in their restrictions. Green reflected light, coupling and striking, receive perception in order to bestow and other actions. Then we will learn tests accordingly, and not simply by what's written according to what you describe. Now in this process of the screen restriction, reflected light, so the contact with that upper force is felt, and the flow of the good is the good that does good, right? Yes, an action that we do, we overcome every time, again and again and again. So every time there's that dripping of the good that does good, right? So why does it feel like dust that tastes like dust? How do those two things work together? I don't get it. It's written that the righteous that are, they have taste of dust. In the work we read exactly, would just hang it on to two couple words. What state is he talking about? Sorry, it was two different parts. Ken, so restriction and screen reflected light, that's overcoming, that's what we need force us to overcome. So the most precise plea, simple, is to ask for forces. Give us forces. Which forces like a baby? What separates the small child and an older child is the forces he is. So raise us, give us forces. No, you're asking for your own natural forces, okay, but we understand that it's not the beastly force, but in order to advance in spirituality and reject forces, you need forces, you need control, you need forces to control Your desire forces to understand what lights are to make those discernments of lights and vessels a doesn't work in this way because this goes it passes through the Creator all. Those forces it's not me who is overcoming, it's the Creator who is overcoming, it's that me who is performing the restriction, it's the Creator who's restricting. I need to work together with him and see every time I went through something and I didn't overcome and I didn't have intentions. And then I looked back, why didn't I do this? Why didn't I do that? Why didn't I ask? And I always reached the conclusion that I didn't have the understanding, the ability to discern, so I need him to give me force's ability to do it. That's what he can give me, nobody else can give me that, so that's what I have to ask for. Okay, well, advance and we'll understand more. What can you do? He is. What should I ask for? The Creator gives the Creator the best state for his advancement anyway. You need to ask, because only according to our request, our complete scrutinized request, can we merit an answer from the Creator, because in our request we discover where we are. What do we feel? What did we get? What did we want to get? Our request is what builds the vessel. He says about the exile that I'm under sorrow and a clothing of sorrow. About redemption, he says me not, and that it's the Creator clothed as the minister. What is the minister clothed as? The minister, I don't know for the time being. Try to ask in the language that we're learning. And I want to continue that asked about the forces we need from the Creator. About the restriction, what do we want the Creator to help us restrict? A desire to receive in order to receive, but we don't want that. We want to receive from our nature. We will always want to receive. The desire to receive is not exactly the desire to receive in order to receive. The desire to receive is unrestricted. What's restricted is only the intention in order to receive. So I'm in the intention to receive. That's how the Creator created me. That's my nature. I don't have any other option to feel livelihood like he created me. So how do I reach a state that I give him my life? It's like devoting everything to him. How do I get a force like that? This power, I would be too precise about it, but this power comes from above, but I have to want it. You wish to want what I actually want. I want to not want in order to receive. It's like I need to reach a state that I, the POS, they even their own words for this. Okay, ask like that. The Creator will understand what you feel, but I don't want it. That's the thing I discover every time, like we read, that I need to feed myself with all kinds of pleasures, and that's how time goes by. And again, and I come, and I study, and I hear, maybe I even have a bit of a desire. And then it's like Di also said, that beastly soul, whatever it is, in one moment it takes over everything. The whole story through connection in the group. You can come out from under the control of the beastly soul for a moment, and again and again and again. These entrances and exits you are building yourself. If I want to speed up this process, so I need as much as I can to be in some interaction with my friends, with the 10. No, without it there's nothing. If not for their society, we be sitting at home. So when does this dependency in order to get into interaction with the friends, I have to be around the table with them, to hear them, to rub with them about the goal, even if it's not only about the goal. So know about the goal, about ways of reaching the goal, ways to reach the goal. Okay, but I'm still dependent on that connection. I depend on it 100%. I have no other eternal connection compared to the connection with the friends, both in this world and in the next. Continues and continues. We are in the same system. World, is there something that we can do in order to disconnect from the dependency of being together physically around the table, around the screen, to being a more inner connection? Because the moments that I'm at work, it's only when I see their beasts, and if not, it's very hard to be in some interaction with them, to check my attitude towards them, to ask for something for the connection between us. I hope it will pass, and you will begin to see in place of the friends that this beastly friend, as you say, you'll begin to see not souls, but desires, at least desires. Try to each one to penetrate through to your friend and feel. It is there a state that a person bestows to the Creator without receiving from Him. It tries to be with a friend, to come closer to being bestowed in order to bestow without receiving. Why they ask? 'Cause when the pleasure comes, so it's clear somehow that it's difficult. But you try to receive it for His sake, and not for your own sake, but in a state of bestowing in order to bestow. That state isn't clear suddenly how to bestow to the Creator if I don't receive from Him. Let's say pleasure doesn't come, so no, you're asking several questions to bestow to the Creator without receiving from Him. Try to love the friends by that. You influence the Creator, He enjoys it, and that can be felt or you can feel it. It can be felt, you will feel how you are filled by the light of not today, but you'll feel it. Can. Okay, before you said that you're with the friends to be with them all the time, writes that there's no other reality except for the friends. You writes a lot about it, so the question is, how do you reach that, to that feeling that there's nothing but their friends only? By overcoming, by getting back to it time and time again. More and more you can be wise and know the entire Torah, and it won't do you any good. We make a lot of efforts in this connection and cooperation doing, but it doesn't always reach the feeling. Sometimes it touches it a bit, sometimes more, because you're that stepping or not insisting on that point. How? By constantly thinking how to open up the emotion, the heart, how to bring the heart's closer, how to pay less attention to externality and more attention to internality. When you say feeling, at least the way I see it, there's certain states. Let's say a congress, a meal, tent meeting, there could be moments that the emotion opens up. That's what you mean. It could be at, but it has to be all the time. So the more we can to concentrate on how to reach a feeling, like if I'm in the Zoom, so not with my mind, to try as much as possible our beastly life. I can only give the example of for a man who is infatuated by with a girl, with a woman, so there's the spirit of time where he thinks about her all the time. This feeling occupies his entire heart, this entire brain. He can't think of anything else. It becomes a little crazy, a little mad. You understand that some are nodding, the others maybe never felt it. So it's a feeling. This feeling comes to a person and takes over. When does it happen? The ages 15, 16, 17, I don't know. Maybe nowadays it's a little earlier. Now I'm sitting with a 10 and there's no feeling, so how should I relate to this state? Should I not be calm? Should I think how to reach that emotion? Or try to connect with the friends and be closer to them in all of their actions, everything they're doing? I have nothing more to offer, just enter forcefully. He want to ask for a while. Now there is a paragraph here that, to the extent of his equivalence of form, that the lower one raises to that extent he can bow to the lower one to make a correction, so she can receive from the upper one. Maybe that's the key for the whole article. The records come from two sides. It's like the DNA, in which way we can organize our vessels in the 10 and aim it to the upper one. In this way we can get a feeling in the he's mixing Hebrew and Russian. I can't translate right down at home in Russian, and then they'll translate for us. I want to ask about the end of the article in relation to this screen. He says the difference between a beastly soul and a godly soul is that, according to the truth, they both come from the Creator. There's no other life in the world than what the Creator gives. The difference is that the beastly soul is given by the Creator, and he doesn't need to know that it comes from the Creator, but man thinks that it comes from nature. That's caused that the ministers get control over the 70 nations, and Israel believes that it came from the Creator and that there's no other force in the world, but he alone will do all deeds. I wanted to ask about the screen. All the restriction before the screen. What person does he has to know before the restriction that the abundance came from the Creator, or is he still under the control of the ministers that it came from the laws of nature? No, he needs to see that it comes from our Creator, and then his calculation with the Creator, what he receives from the Creator, and that's what he restricts. Yes, 2 hours already understand them. I also have my limits. MOS 1 MC 1. We say that a person has to be like a young man thinking about a woman. The woman in this example is the creator. Yes, who in this example is the 10. The 10 is a society that directs the man to the woman. Maybe it's incorrect to ask to say that the 10 is like the parents that you have to get them to like you. Is that incorrect? I don't feel that. Example all and one. Thank you are a when there is I'm sorry a perception or a kind of remembrance that all the forces that happen in the world are actually a forces of pistol. Other kind of angels. Is this connected to the godly so can yes you and how exactly are also in relation to this article. Is this connected to a person or to the 10 that this remembrance occurs where exactly in the building of a request and a part 2 is disconnected. This perception, this remembrance that's inside within the mal. I can't explain more than that, right? Now Mar 24. Correctly build the screen. You have to keep the and get to know them, or is it only work with the intention? For now it's only work with their intention. It turns out that we are cheating, but we're not working in it. Can block them at TV. No, you can be calm. What's the difference between faith and vessels of bestow? Faith is exactly the quality of bestow. Woman, why does it say here that a person cannot attain faith before he has vessels of bestow? Because he needs vessels that from them he can raise his faith to their creator, meaning not through faith he attains the vessels. No question. From Latin 13. Why did we get to the exile? If we have a desire to work in order to bestow, we don't have a desire to work in order to bestow, yet we are in desires that still control us, and those are the desires to receive. That's why our state is called exile. Women MCK 113. Dear teacher, my question is, you say that the prayer has to be a complete prayer so it would not remain of floating in the air. On the other hand, I heard that the Creator will correct our prayer if it's incorrect. So the question is, what kind of prayer do we leave hanging in the air, and what kind of prayer the Creator will correct? He decides. That the Creator decides. Key of 3. Hello, please tell me are written in the article that the pleasure has to be clothed in a vessel, and all the clothing come from envy, lust, and honor, in which the pleasure clothes. When we talk about the vessel, is it a state which is like the sum total of the desires, or a specific desire as a sum of the desires? We said earlier that restriction, screen, reflected light, those are our vessels, right? Is there any connection between envy, lust, and honor, which are states we understand, but restriction, screen, reflected light are less? Can we say that envy, lust, and honor are egoistic states, and restriction, screen, reflected light are spiritual states? There's no such thing as restricting the screen, restricting the desire. The main thing for us perform a restriction on ourselves to restrict desire to receive and come closer to the ability to bestow. Different vessels, different states, meaning the Creator constantly renews the states. Then the limits are the limits of the vessel are in the limits of a vessel you find the same desires as food, sex, family, money, honor, power. All those are within the limits of every vessel. Yes, I don't know why he needs that one. Hebrew 3. Question from a friend about the article. How does connect with the souls to bestow to them? Includes all the souls. That's why she bestows to them, because they are in her ass. Another, yesterday we had an exercise in the you said that our request builds a vessel, and we had an exercise where a friend is asking from the Creator for another friend. We join in the heart, and we went from one friend to another. It's very powerful. A friend said we should do it every week. Wanted to ask if this is something that he would recommend that we do, or we should do more internally, or something constant like that can make the text of it disappear, that you have to check. I don't want to decide according to this. I can't. PT women PT 10. Thank you. Question from a friend asking the work in the 10 is bestow in order to bestow means that I'm connecting with the friend and I feel them, and to receive in order to bestow means that I allow the friend to love me. I don't enjoy this love, but I let them be the bestowers. Don't you enjoy their love because I wish to bestow to them. I want them to enjoy if I will receive their love. So what by you receiving love from them, you're not giving them joy here. The important thing is the intention. With which intention am I receiving their love? Of course, so they would enjoy from. To me it's how so like that incorporeal of try and I'll translate that to our life and see that that's the only way it works. Thank you about bringing down from holiness something to the shelf keeper. What does it mean in the 10 that we bring down from holiness something into the sea pot in order to exist for the time being and approach corrections, and then the cot shells will disappear. We work in our forces, try to ascend to the actions of bestow and mutual bestow to bestow upon one another, and that's how we try to connect between us. That's it, and whatever else happens is a result of that. That's what we're talking about. Okay, sorry, next part of the lesson. What do we have? We have the have stud or introduction to the book 7. There's 16 there. Oh, let's continue that. A. We are studying from the introduction to the book. P. In the writings of B, page 145 in the Hebrew edition. We continue from item 16. Introduction to the book. Item 16. We must know the nature of the two kinds of discernments customary for us. The first discernment is called discernment of good and bad. Second discernment is called discernments of true and false. This means that the Creator has imprinted a discerning force in each creature, that He acts everything that is good for it and brings it to its desired completion. The first discernment is an active physical force. It operates using the sensation of bitter and sweet, which loads and repels the bitter form since it is bad for it, and loves and attracts the sweet because it is good for it. This operating force is sufficient in the still, the vegetative, and the animate, in reality, to bring them to their desired completion. That means that what happened, am I disconnected? What happened in the still, vegetative, and anime? There's a force that we know in our world, and on a speaking degree there are additions, I guess, please. Atop them is the human species, in which the Creator instilled a rational operating force. It operates in sorting the above second discernment, rejecting falsehood and emptiness with loathing to the point of knower, and attracts true matters and every benefit with great love. This discernment is called the discernment of true and false. It is implemented solely in the human species, each according to his own measure. Know that this second acting force was created and came to man because of the serpent. At the time of creation he had only the first active force from the discernments of good and bad, which was sufficient for him at that time. That means that also the receiver, and also when you be still, we don't take account of specific feelings, but just give and take. Let me explain it to you with an allegory. If the righteous were rewarded according to their good deeds, and the wicked punished according to their bad deeds, in this world holiness would be determined for us in the reality of sweet and good, and that the other side be defined in the reality of bad and bitter. In this state the commandment of choice would come to us in the form of, behold, I have set before you the sweet and the bitter, and you shall choose the sweet. Th all the people would be guaranteed to achieve wholeness, for they would certainly run from the sin as it is bad for them, and they would be occupied in His His commandments day in and day out, ceaselessly, like today's rules regarding the bodily matters and its filth, since it is good and sweet to them. So was the matter of when He created him and put him into the Garden of Eden to work in it and keep it, and our sages interpreted to work in it are the mitzvah. The commandments of to do and to keep it are the mitzvah. Not to do, his mitzvah of to do were to eat in the light in all the trees of the garden, and his mitzvah of not to do were to not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. The mitzvah of to do were sweet and nice, and the mitzvot of not to do were retirement from the bitter fruit that is as hard as death. Not surprisingly, these cannot be called mitzvah and labor. We find the likes of this in our present work, where through the pleasures of Shabbat and good days we are rewarded with the upper holiness, and we're also rewarded for retiring from reptiles and insects and everything that one finds. Lo, me find that the choice in the work of Ad was by way of choose sweet. It follows that the physical palate alone was sufficient for all he needed to know what the Creator commanded, and then what he did not command. Is that clear? Can Gilot? Yes. Gilot not clear? We don't have such thing. It's inhumane and human not to give pleasure to himself for himself, something that precedes us. You can understand it. That's what beasts have. That's what you find in animals. Whatever is good for them, they understand. Whatever isn't good for them, they understand. There's nothing with a question mark. It's not clear. Anything we detect, we immediately want it for ourselves. Nature, and here is talking about something we don't have, that it's born corrected or something I don't understand. And yeah, that's what he's going to explain to us. 17:17. Now we can understand the serpent's cunningness, which our sages added and notified us that some clothed in it meaning, because its words were very high, started with although God said you shall not eat from any tree of the garden, meaning it began to speak with her since the woman was not commanded by the Creator. Hence it asked her about the modes of scrutiny, meaning how do you know that the tree of knowledge was prohibited? Perhaps all the fruits of the garden were forbidden for you too. And the woman said, of the fruit of the trees of the garden we may eat, and so on so forth. You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. There are two great precisions here. One, that touching was never forbidden. Hence why did she add the prohibition? Did she doubt the words of the Creator said you will surely die, and the woman said lest you die? Could it be that she did not believe the words of the Creator even prior to the sin? The woman answered it according to the serpent's question. She knew what the Creator had prohibited, that all the trees of the garden are sweet and nice and good to eat. However, she was already close to touching that tree inside the garden and tasted in it a taste that is hard as death. She herself had proven that by her own observation, that there's fear of death even from mere touching. For this reason she understood the prohibition further than what she heard from her husband, as there is no one so wise as the experienced. Lest you die concerns the touching. The answer must have been quite sufficient, for who would interfere and deny another's taste? However, the serpent contradicted her and said, you shall not surely die, for God knows that in the day you eat thereof your eyes shall be opened. We must make the precision concerning the matter of the opening of the eyes to this place. Indeed, it informed her of a new and sublime matter. It proved to them that it is folly to think that the Creator created something harmful and detrimental in his world. Thus, with respect to the Creator, it is certainly not a bad or harmful thing. Instead, that bitterness you will taste in it even when close to touching is only on your part, since this eating is to notify you of the height of your merit. Thus, it is additional holiness that you need during the act. So your sole aim will be to bring contentment to Him. Keep the aim for which you were created. For this reason it seems to you as bad and harmful, so you will understand the additional holiness required of you first. For in the day you eat thereof, meaning if the ACT is in holiness and purity is clear as the you shall be as God, knowing good and evil. This means that as it is certainly sweet to the Creator and completely equal, so the good and bad will be to you in complete equivalence, sweet and gentle. Still, it is possible to doubt the credibility of the serpent, since the Creator did not tell it this himself. Therefore the serpent first said, for God knows that in the day you eat thereof, your eyes shall be opened. This means that it is not necessary for the Creator to notify you of that. Say He knows that if you pay attention to this to eat on the side of holiness, your eyes shall be opened by and selves to understand the measure of greatness in it. You will feel wondrous sweetness and gentleness in it, and it does not need to let you know. As for this, He instilled in you the scrutinizing force that you know you may know what is to your benefit by yourselves. It is written after that, right after that, and the woman saw that the tree was good to eat, and that it was the light to the eyes. This means that she did not rely on His words, but went and examined with her own mind and understanding, and sanctified herself with additional holiness to bring contentment to the Creator in order to complete the aim desired of her, and not at all for herself. At that time her eyes were opened as the serpent had said, and the woman saw that the tree was good to eat. In other words, by seeing that it was a delight to the eyes before she even touched it, she felt great sweetness and lust. When her eyes saw by themselves, she had not seen such a desirable thing in all the garden, the trees of their garden. She also learned that the tree is good for knowledge, meaning that there is far more to crave and covet in this tree than in all the trees of the garden. This refers to knowing that they were created for this act of eating, and that this is the whole purpose, as the serpent had revealed to her. And then, after all these absolute scrutinies, she took of its fruit and ate, and gave also to her men with her, and he ate. The text ACC accurately writes with her meaning, with a pure intention only to bestow, and not for her own sake. This is the meaning of the words of the words, and gave to her men with her in sanctity. Okay, so we will try to read until tomorrow. Read it again at home at least once, and prepare questions about it, but questions that are relevant. Okay, what do we have today? Today our broadcast schedule is at noon. We have the afternoon lesson